I'm Ryan.
I'm Jaden.
I'm Declan.
This is the Real Talk podcast. This is episode two. If you didn't catch the first episode, real as in REEL, and we like to talk about movies. Uh, so basically, today's episode is comparing and contrasting the 1997 film Contact versus Interstellar, which came out in 2013, no, 2014. Uh, and I think we'll go over. I guess the first we'll go after a quick summary of each movie and we'll talk about Contact first. So basically, what happens is in this movie Contact, we're following the main character, Dr. Ellie Arroway. She's just a scientist that is devoted to looking for extraterrestrial intelligence. Uh, Even when she was young, she was driven by, the curiosity of the of space and also driven by the loss of her father. Um, as an adult, though, she's constantly looking up at the stars, doing astrology or astronomy and all that, and she's hoping to look up to the sky to find some type of meaning in the universe through science. And then as an adult, Ellie works with radio telescopes that kind of scan space for different signals, hoping to somehow hear from aliens. Oh, excuse me. And the whole thing is her work is very underfunded and it's criticized by other people, especially those who in the movie are prioritizing more of a practical or immediate, I guess, results or I guess scientific outcomes in this case. And but despite all this, she remains committed to the belief that there's intelligent life that's outside of Earth. However, things kind of change when she detects a signal in a different star system. I forget the name of it. Starts with a V.
Vega.
Vega. And the whole thing is that it's not just some random signal, it's like information that can be encoded. And it includes a sequence of prime numbers, and it's like a detailed instructions for building this massive machine. And it kind of sparks this global excitement and a little bit of political and philosophical debate around this about like, oh, what's out there. The whole thing though is that this machine or this instructions for this machine is kind of a major point of contention because different nations kind of are competing against each other for its construction and use, and questions arise about who should operate this thing. And eventually through a lot of drama, Ellie is chosen for this. And the whole thing is her lack of religious belief is like becomes a political issue in this, and is a reason why she wasn't initially chosen, I guess, for everyone else to see. Everyone else kind of watched this other guy go into the machine that ended up blowing up. But then there's like this second secret version of the same machine in Japan. And Ellie is then like kind of given like a second go, like, hey, you can go to this one though. And then she goes over to uh this machine. And when she goes into the machine, she kind of experiences like this wormhole effect where she's in space and there's like all these lights and flashes around her. Then she eventually like kind of shows up and like it looks like a simulation, but I don't know if that's just because of the time that the movie's made. But it looks like a alien created environment uh kind of for Ellie, and the aliens even like take on the form of her deceased dad, and then they're at a beach that she was that's familiar to her, so she's more at ease when hearing the information from the aliens. And basically this alien kind of tells her, oh, humanity is still in the early stages of development, and this is just, quote the movie, contact for the beginning of, this larger space community. After this encounter, though, Ellie returns to Earth, but from the outside perspective of everybody else, the machine kind of just nothing happens, and to them nothing happens, and it's just static on the videotape. Uh, Ellie insists that she experienced like hours and hours of travel, but according to, outsiders, uh, she, is basically questioned about like, are you crazy? Like, are you serious? Are you making this up? And, Ellie insists like, no, I'm telling the truth. But ultimately the film ends very like ambiguously,
Ambiguously.
ambiguously. Uh, and basically at the end of it all, the officials kind of just diminish her experience and they kind of like I don't like the ending, but they kind of just say like, "Oh yeah, she toughed it out and just continues to do what she loves, and continues to go listen in space and hope that the space people will make contact again." Uh, Not a huge fan of the movie, but we'll get into it later in the podcast.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about like since you talked about it last time, the public reception at the time, so I was just looking at into it. At the time, people kind of liked this. From what I could tell, like a lot of people liked the movie, but a lot of people had like a complaint that we had, which is that the ending is not exactly that good. Or it's like anticlimactic, more accurately. But yeah, from the public perspective, most people liked it because at the time, a lot of the films were like very actiony, like very, you know, I guess like aggressive, and Contact was seen as like a more like slow, like serious tone of film. It doesn't hold up today, but we'll get into that, I guess. I guess we can get into that now.
Mhm.
Thoughts on this film? In short, we'll try and keep it short to not rag too hard.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of forgot to bring up kind of like the romance subplot in it.
It's barely a subplot.
Yeah, it's just basically Ellie, hooks up with this, Nepo baby. I shouldn't say that, but
He's like this. He's a Christian. He went to like seminary school, but then he
yeah.
drops out because he realized he didn't want to not have
But
sex.
wasn't his dad one of the officials or something like
I
that?
don't think
Or am
so.
I remembering that wrong? For some reason, okay, I guess I shouldn't have said Nepo baby. For some reason, I thought one of his dad was the dad. I thought his dad was one of the officials or something like that. And it was kind of why he like, okay, sorry, weird point, but now it doesn't matter because I didn't realize. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the romance plot is very poorly written. I would it's more so it's like treated as if it's like a deep romantic plot, I should say, but it's not portrayed to the viewer as a romantic plot because they hook up one time and then she doesn't talk to him for 4 years. Then she sees him like 2 or 3 times, and then he stops her from getting the job that she's been dreaming of because he loves her, but he like says it's because she's not religious, but it's actually that he loves her. And then she is like, "Oh, like I love that you love me," basically, and she's okay with that weirdly, but like it seems as if as the viewer we're missing out on like a major portion of this relationship because it doesn't really seem like the stakes are high enough for what they're going like the relationship doesn't seem strong enough for what's happening in the film, and it really drags the film down because it makes the film about 40 minutes longer,
Yeah.
because he basically intercepts her from doing the like job she wants to do, and it becomes a whole thing. I will say the film is also too long and the ending is kind of really bad. But
Yeah, I'd say that's my main gripe with the film. It feels like it does have some aspects worth exploring and looking deep into, but it spends a similar amount of time on those interesting aspects than it does with the rest of the exposition, be it like the romance plot or the congressional hearing. I guess to put it like in its simplest terms, like I wanted more space stuff, and there wasn't as much space stuff comparatively to Ellie's struggles and the romance subplot and the congressional hearing and all this and whatnot. I would have really liked more visuals and depiction of the wormhole itself.
Which even that was kind of underwhelming, but maybe that's just because we're spoiled from the movie we're about to talk about. But that really let me down. I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah, the visuals are a very they actually don't even feel of the time, they feel behind the time weirdly. As like I don't know if we said it earlier, but this film did come out in 1997, which is not super recent, but it's still less than 30 years ago. I just want to take a like second. There's a major plot that goes through this film about her accomplishments being like taken over by someone else, and that never has any resolution, which is very weird. I feel like a theme of most movies set in space, or like any big movies like this, have like a big theme to take home. And this is one of the first movies I've seen in my entire life that has no notable theme. Like that I can like draw from it to be like, oh, this is like the point. Like, even like Cars, the movie Cars has a theme. Like there it feels like this movie lacks like an actual like the theme. I don't know if the theme is hope or wonder, or it doesn't seem like it's really wonder because no one believes her, and then they just decide to believe her randomly, but it's not like I guess it's faith, but she doesn't become religious at the end. I don't know. It seems like the theme is missing, which is the first for especially for a film that was as successful as this is, to watch a movie where there's no like through point. But I feel like we've ragged on about it enough for now. Well, we
Yeah,
have
we
more.
can move on to
There's more complaints.
Interstellar.
Um, so if you want to take the lead on Interstellar, talk about
Sure.
that one.
Um, so Interstellar was a movie that came out in 2014. It's directed by Christopher Nolan, who is a very well-known director, directing the Batman trilogy with Christian Bale, Inception, The Prestige, all those good stuff. It focuses on Matthew McConaughey, whose his character is entitled Cooper. Cooper is a former NASA test pilot who now works on a farm with his father-in-law and his two children. Um, During a dust storm, Cooper and his daughter Murph observe what can only be described as a gravitational anomaly, which ultimately leads them to coordinates of a secret NASA facility. Um, the goal of this secret NASA facility is in this sort of dystopian version of Earth where all the crops are drying out and the land is becoming increasingly more and more unable to sustain plant life and agriculture. The NASA facility focuses on attempting to look at universes and planets light years away for looking at their agricultural environment, whether their life is sustainable to humans and human crops and whatnot. So the film centers around Cooper and Anne Hathaway's character and some other scientists who venture out in search of these planets on which previous scientists and astronauts have been recording data and have been in a sort of deep coma sleep state. Um, so the upon venturing to different planets, some bumps in the road get thrown along. When visiting a planet in search of one of these scientists, which has been in a coma and reside on a planet of interest. Um, One of the scientists dies. A massive tsunami and hurricane cause some bumps in the road for our scientists, making it so they spend way more time than anticipated on said planet. Um, it eventually results in Cooper finding out that decades had passed since the time they spent on the planet accelerates time in a sense. Time is a major aspect of this film, and mostly its relativity is looked at. So that was a main example of that. So following all of these sort of bumps in the road, Cooper's distraught and disdain at what missing his children grow up. They uh, end up only being able to travel to one other planet of the initial couple that they were looking at. They end up going to a planet inhabited, or rather, that's resided over by Dr. Mann, who is Matt Damon's character. Uh, upon waking up, Man tries to kill Cooper, revealing that he falsified the data of the planet in hopes of them coming and rescuing him. Uh, Man is not um, successful in his mission to kill Cooper. Um, and upon Man going onto the spaceship, he kills himself through the explosion of a failed manual docking. Um, it's at this point in time that the NASA facilities disbelief in the astronauts' mission is revealed to Cooper as well as Anne Hathaway's character Brandt. Um, and upon this, everything is sort of set into a haywire. There's insufficient, bless you.
Thank you.
There is insufficient fuel on the spaceship. They've already cost themselves decades upon decades. Um, but order to achieve the success of the mission, Cooper travels through a wormhole, which he aims to gather intel from. And this wormhole is pretty much the climax of the film. In the wormhole, Murph, or in the wormhole, Cooper realizes that himself in the future was the cause of that gravitational anomaly, leading him and his daughter to find the NASA secret space facility. Um, he, in this sort of wormhole, it's appears as a past three-dimensional, multi-dimensional setting on which Cooper realizes that he is able to send Murph a message in the past um, through Morse code using the gravitational anomaly, which eventually results in a grown-up Murph being able to solve the solution of the astronauts' focus on Earth. So eventually, Cooper wakes up out of this wormhole. He is rescued by a faraway spaceship, which takes him to a planet, revealing that his daughter, Murph, was successful in her mission to solve this solution. Um, and the movie ends with Cooper meeting Murph in a very old age and sharing a heartwarming moment about that. As you can see from my description, the plot is very, very complex. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that I struggled to even touch on in that short description. Um, but the plot of this movie is what makes it such a good movie, in my opinion. It was very well received when it came out. Especially of note is the score by Hans Zimmer. Um, so yeah, people really liked this movie when it came out. It was a big financial success, but it was very confusing to others, as you may have been able to pick up through my description. Personally, I really liked the movie. I think that all the technical aspects of the movie, like its cinematography, its score, like I mentioned, its visuals are breathtaking. It really makes it feel as if you are in this sort of deep space in this world of unknown. I really appreciate all of the effort put into the production team in making this movie. Of note is Christopher Nolan's collaboration with an astrophysicist onto the to create a realistic depiction of the wormhole depicted in the movie. And they actually ended up finding out some information about wormholes themselves in this movie, which is a cool tidbit that I thought.
It was black holes, but
Black hole,
same
yeah.
same
Sorry.
thing, pretty much. No, I'm kidding. But no, it's black holes actually just because it was brought up. I happen to have to do like a tiny little class facilitation about Interstellar. So one of the things is Kip Thorne was the supervisor of the filmmaking team, and he's like he's the he was part of like the real scientist group that actually did the rendering for the black hole, or at least like kind of created the software needed to render it, and through like different manipulation of like the camera angles and all that of the simulation with like light rays and all that. Not too important, but basically they're able to like render in this new way to look at a black hole, and like the whole way of seeing the rings around it and all that of the light around the black hole. That's new. Uh, but yeah, that's basically what it was. Oh, I'm sorry. And a quick thing with it too is it was pretty interesting is for the movie they actually had to, sorry, allergies. They ended up having to change the look of the black hole a little bit than like the raw actual footage for the whatever the simulation was showing, just so it was more, I guess, digestible and more appealing to the viewers for the movie. But yeah, I mean, I guess that wraps up our, I guess, have we haven't talked about what we thought about Interstellar, just Declan.
No, yeah. So
Um, I liked it. I like the like closing theme of it. I personally like hopeful films, so that was exciting for me. I think that in comparison to the film Contact, despite them both being incredibly long, I feel like Interstellar's used its time like very effectively. It felt like it painted a picture. It is a very long film, but I didn't feel like I was bored. It was more so in the sense that like every scene made felt like it made sense. Like I felt like the points were like covered in them. Sure, they could have been a little bit shorter for some stuff, but I think in comparison to Contact, where I feel like a lot of scenes were just kind of almost filler, we weren't getting a lot from them. I like that aspect. So I like that I left with like something to think about.
Yeah. No, I guess I enjoyed some parts of Interstellar, some not so much. I guess I like the actual like scientific concepts of like time dilation and all that, and the actual, I guess, like visuals of it during the space travel. I was just very frustrated with some of the plot. I get maybe not even the plot, just the characters. Like specifically, I just what really bothered me was the rest of the crew on the ship, other than, Cooper. I mean, Cooper I felt bad for because he didn't even have to be there. I thought it was kind of crazy and just inconsiderate of the director to even make him think about going out there, especially when he already knew it was a lost cause. But it frustrated me how like almost disconnected that the rest of the crew felt, because the rest of the crew was like so invested in like the actual space and like, oh, science, this, all this is awesome, and not like kind of like time and time again. It even shows toward the end, like later in the movie when they're all like distraught and especially after the going onto the water planet and almost dying, they're all distraught, like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And it kind of just bothered me how they kind of went into this thinking it was going to be all rainbows and sunshine almost. Like they just kind of seem so like oblivious, and you'd think, I don't know, I would just think when these are supposed to be like these great scientific minds, they would have a more holistic viewpoint of seeing like everything. Like, okay, we're going to space. Space is dangerous. We don't know what we're getting ourselves into, so we should expect anything, you know? And they just don't take any kind of like, I mean, Cooper's fine, but like a lot of the other, crew members just don't take a lot of the hardship too well, and that kind of bothered me a little bit. Which I mean, I get that's the movie, you need the emotional strings on it and all that. And I think without that, the movie would lose a little bit of its emotional edge, but that bothered me a little bit.
I just resumed the recording,
Okay.
so
So, um, with now we're just gonna move on to comparing with themes. So, or comparing themes in the film that we thought were like interesting or pretty consistent. So the first one we wanted to start with was religion, which is a big factor of both films, but they take a very different approach. Um, you want me to start first or?
yeah,
Oh yeah. Okay. So for me, I noted that like Contact is very heavy-handed with its religious approach in the sense that for example, Ellie is not like picked for the trip into the other system because she's not religious, which is like this is a film from the 1990s. Religion was obviously still, it's still a thing now, but even back then the world had started to become more secular. So that was like an interesting choice to include that they wouldn't pick her solely because she wasn't religious or she didn't believe in God. And at the end, the film still takes a very like religion first approach to discussions about like how our society is versus um Interstellar. Oh my God, I forgot the name. In comparison to Interstellar, which takes this approach where it's almost like the gods that we thought were like the aliens that were like these like all-powerful gods were actually humans all along. So instead of it being, it is a religious idea, but it takes it and turns into like humans can kind of do anything, like the no matter the religious power. So I that's how I like compared them because they both have a very big like concept of how to approach religion, but they take it at a point where it's one is so still in this like religious way, while the other is like actually religion is more involving us than we initially think. So that's how I saw it.
yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Interstellar and its sort of depiction as, man actually being the root of all past, present, and future. Um, I found that to be, I question actually if that's sacrilegious or rather inform or in or rather in favor of religion. The way that I interpret it as is with religion in its infancy, like at the very start of man, at the very start of religion itself, religion is inherently a man-made creation. So that's sort of how I interpreted it. Religion is stories and prophecies and faith taken from man used to judge man. And it's sort of, I took that circular nature of the black hole in Interstellar and Cooper affecting his past with his current and thus affecting the future as sort of similar to just religion in general being a product of man, by man, for man.
Yeah, I think it definitely reflects like the time period that both movies are made for sure. Because I mean, I don't know if this is just a me thing, but I feel like definitely in 1997 there is a more like I feel like people are less religious now than they were in 1997. I think that's something that many can come to agree with. And with that, with religion, obviously there's a higher up, there's more faith in a higher power and all that that isn't us, right? And I think just that whole idea of in Interstellar, Cooper's the one saving, himself and even other people. other humans, and then in Contact, it's all about, oh, but what about somebody else? You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that definitely calls to the time that these two movies were made in.
Yeah, I think Interstellar, it's associated in a world more contemporary and more philosophical when it comes to science and religion. I think that's reflected in Interstellar, especially in comparison to sort of the uh monolithic point of view as that we see in Contact.
Absolutely. Uh, I guess. I guess what way would you go about it, I guess? Like in Interstellar, even in Interstellar, they're like talking about like, oh, the fifth dimensional beings and all that. And then, they're like, oh, but that's us, just really advanced, all that. At what point is it like not humanity? I guess I'm having a difficult time kind of explaining this, but like I feel like even in Interstellar, they're like referencing the future humans as, oh, fifth dimensional beings or something like that. They're not just saying, oh, super advanced humans.
Mhm.
So it just makes you think like, is there a point is there at one point or another where like that kind of supernatural, even godlike, nature starts kind of sprouting, if you get what I'm trying to say?
I feel like a lot of people see like God as like something that they can't perceive, they can't explain. So I guess in that instance, like we are three-dimensional beings. If a fourth dimensional being came along, how would we explain it, kind of thing? So like I think that when does it become supernatural? I guess when there's no justifiable explanation. So I feel like because we know where it initiates from, it's like an in-between kind of thing.
That's fair.
Like that's how I would see it. If there was a fifth dimensional being in the room right now, maybe there is. If there was one, like I would have no way of knowing because I'm three dimensions. So I
Right.
feel like that's like how most people talk about God as like this like being outside of our realm of like visual, so we imagine it in the way that we can see it. I don't know if you've ever seen like Flatland. It's like a um okay, I'm gonna like not tangent too bad on this, but from what I remember, Flatland is a story about a 2D world. And so there's a 1D world, which is like a line, and there's 2D, which are shapes. So it's a world where everything is 2D. So all the shapes just see them as 2D objects, and a 3D object passes through. So like, a cube passes through. But when the 2D creatures see the cube, they only see the line getting bigger and
Mm.
smaller because they're only
Futurama. There's a Futurama
yeah.
episode on
So it's like
that.
that's that kind of idea where it's like we can only perceive it to the best of our ability. So I think in that instance, they because we know they originate as humans, they no longer are supernatural to us.
Okay, that's
But
fair.
if you didn't know, I mean, it hits all the criteria of a supernatural being except for its origin is known. So it's like an in-between kind of thing.
No, but what's interesting with that is like in Interstellar, like there's like they're attacking it, like they're not attacking it, they're
Interacting?
interacting with it, they're trying to understand it, trying to explain things. While I felt like in Contact, it's just like, God,
Yeah.
that's it.
I definitely think it's also contact. Like they make a big point of that it's far away, and the only way to get there is like this machine that they don't even know if it's going to take you there.
Right.
So I feel like for that kind of thing, it's like the distance aspect of like Interstellar. They're going there for a whole different purpose, and they know that these like fifth dimensional beings open this wormhole. But for contact, it's like these people or whatever they are from forever, like the distant, literal distance away from them, is like trying to get them to come there. So it becomes like this is a sign from God. I don't know what sign it's intended to be, but it's a sign, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the world of Contact right now.
Yeah, I mean, but they didn't seem like as receptive to it. They're
Mhm.
like, I don't know, this is sketchy. Not quite like in
Yeah.
that manner, but they're like hesitant.
I also think that in Contact, the status of the world in both films is so different because in Interstellar, they're on like their last hope. Right? Like Contact is just like if today the government was like, "Hey, we just made contact with aliens." Like there's still news happening. It's like they make a point to show like society is still exactly the same, but now they know that they have like interacted with aliens. They're not. It's not like there's a big war happening or anything.
Right.
Versus Interstellar, where it's like everyone's kind of dead because there's a drought. So like there's not that many people left on the Earth. So it's like more like a wonder of like, oh, maybe there's a future for us versus like Contact where it's like, oh, we made contact with aliens. Let's go like actually like go meet them. I
Right.
feel like it's like the status of the two worlds is so different.
Mhm.
There's no like, I wouldn't say desire, but there's no like urgency in
Mhm.
Yeah,
contact.
there's no need for it. It's more
Yeah.
like a want. And the world is like because it's such a big deal, it becomes like a need to do this. But it's in reality, if they got the information from the aliens and just decided to do nothing with it, nothing would have really they wouldn't be affected either or way.
Right.
Versus Interstellar, where it's like they are doing this because they feel like they have to because they don't have a hope.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair. And I guess going on to our next theme, we've been sitting on this for a long time, but you guys want to, I feel like the religion and the supernatural kind of
Yeah, we
overlapped
kind
with the faith and hope bit.
yeah.
I
So,
feel like we definitely started getting into the faith and hope bit.
I mean, we could like expand on it a little bit.
yeah,
I feel
so,
like, or
no, you go.
I feel like, I mean, when you think about it, like our society's depictions of faith versus hope, you know, hope is almost like very ingrained with the phrase of like wonder. Hope is like wonder. You hope for a better future. You hope for a I guess a better future in general, like a something different versus faith, where it's the belief in what was told to you and like hoping that hope and faith are intertwined, but they're separate entities,
Mhm.
basically. And then the film, Ellie, well, in Contact, I should be more specific. Ellie is like a very pure case of hope but no faith, where the rest of a lot of the people in the film are very faith and hope, and then there's some that are just faith. Like they're the conservative, like Christian groups, which are very much faith. They don't want to go do this thing. They don't want to interact because they think it will go against what like God they believe that God is. So that's a whole faith issue versus people in the government, especially people who want to travel, who want to go on that like in the pod to go to the other place. A lot of them are displaying faith and hope because they have this like idea of they want to go do this thing, but if they tell everyone in the world that they're religious, they have a better chance of doing it. And if they are religious, then they're not making it up. They're not, but still, it's like they have this faith part, and Ellie's just hope. She believes that there's something out there, and she sees it as benevolent from the jump, even though everyone's like, "Why do you think it's benevolent?" I think it's like almost like how there's a hope idea for humanity, and then there's a hope idea for like other things. She has like this hope in the aliens in the same way that some people have a hope in like humanity's like altruistic like purposes. I feel like Interstellar really approaches more of a hope than faith thing the entire time. It's actually very, it becomes religious in like the last 30 minutes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but for the entirety of the movie, it's way more hope and like this thing can happen. We can like save this world, and then all of a sudden it's like actually we're the gods, which is a like a crazy switch, but it is like it's a difference. I feel like Contact is very faith first.
Mhm.
When comparing like the two movies, when with Faith and Hope, I immediately thought of this analogy. I don't know why this made me think of it, but I feel like it's a good one. And it's like faith. So like hypothetical, you're in your car and you lose control of the car in like we'll say like icy road, and you start like fishtailing.
Mhm.
Faith, you let go of the wheel and you see what happens. Hope is where you're actually gonna try to like catch it,
Yeah.
catch the car and keep driving, see if you can save it. That's kind of how I saw and compared, Contact and Interstellar and the Fate versus Hope. With Contact, it was very fate. We'll take Ellie out of the equation, but everyone else. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It's very taking Ellie out of the equation, it's very faith based. A lot of the, other people, and they're kind of just like, there's whatever happens, happens. I don't know. Like that's just the kind of the theme like that just kept repeating over and over. Like we'll just let it figure its way out. Like I just didn't like that because I just didn't think it was realistic.
Mm.
While in Interstellar, that hope was shown because, people are hoping like, oh, find a new planet, hoping that, oh, I hope we can make it back home, right? By doing all these crazy like things. And they were very contrasted in that sense with faith and hope. One was just kind of letting, whatever take the wheel, and the other one was like, oh no, I got the wheel. Let's see what I can do.
Yeah, I feel like Contact is so religious. It almost feels watching that film almost feels like you're watching a sermon in a sense. It's like it's a very I don't know, it's a different approach to like a sci-fi movie, especially to be so like putting religion first. And there's nothing wrong with religion, of course. But it was just very different from Interstellar in that aspect. Like that was all I could think about the whole time. And the faith, the like premier faith idea in Contact in comparison to Interstellar's like vast focus on like hope for the future of humanity was just really like very well a big contrast between the two films. I now like I want to talk about how the female characters in the film are depicted because I have a lot of issues. And when we talk about female characters, we're talking about Murph, the secondary protagonist of Interstellar, and Ellie, the primary. Well, she's basically the only protagonist of Contact. So I will. I don't want to just be like talking about it. Is something you guys want to jump in? Or...
Oh, I mean, if
Okay, I have ideas. I just don't want to
I can chime in really quick with
Okay.
something. I think that the depictions of Ellie and Murph are definitely drastically different. And I think a lot of that is due to the environments of which they're in, be it because of that designation between faith and hope, be it mostly because of the different time periods in which these films operate. But I definitely see lots of similarities and differences between the two female heroines.
yeah, I guess going into that is Murph was like right hand man to the director. I keep forgetting his name. So I feel like in that sense, she was already at an advantage compared to like Ellie in Contact. Ellie was just scrapping for funding, because and she's scrapping to be able to basically be the lead on her own like alien, exploration bit that she discovered in the first place. And I just thought that was very interesting. I don't know if that's just, what like you're saying, I do think that reflects the time that that film was made. Um, but definitely I just thought it was very funny how despite both being at different, I guess like I guess levels and power with like what can be done, what can they do, is ultimately at the end both are like I wouldn't even say that. No, I take it back because we'll keep going. I'll take it back after I finish my thought. But both are kind of like pioneers. Murph discovered, how to. She didn't figure out the equation, but like she made her discovery on space travel, and then Ellie made her discovery on, making contact with aliens. But I guess, going back to it, reflecting the time, and also maybe not just reflecting the time, but also just it is a plot line is it doesn't matter for Ellie because they don't believe her. And, for some reason, the hours and hours to her was 1 second and some static. So, uh, what to say to that? I guess it keeps going back to it's, I think in a lot of it's just the time that the movie was made in.
Yeah. I feel like one point that we mentioned before recording this is that there's like a major plot point for Ellie that just has no resolution at all, weirdly. where they were Dr. It's, it's like Derman. I need to know the name before I say his name. What is his name? Oh, Drumlin. Okay. So there's a major plot point where Dr. Drumlin, who's over all of her research, even though he doesn't believe in anything she's doing, he doesn't want to support it. As soon as she starts to get like good findings or anything of that nature, he just fully like claims them as his own. They're in meetings. She does all the work in the meeting, and he treats her like almost like a assistant. Like he just tells her, "Oh, just change the slide, watch midway while she's talking." He takes her position on the spacecraft, even though she was the one that was top pick the entire time. He takes it because he just tells them what they want to hear. And at the end of the day, she still saves him. Well, she actually doesn't save him. She warns him before he dies to a suicide bomber, but there's never any resolution about or like any like apology or anything for her about all the things that he's done to like undermine her work. And I just felt like that was a weird take or weird like idea to put into the film because it adds it's like leading up to this point where you're like, oh, there's gonna be some resolution where it's discovered like she's actually not getting the credit for all the stuff she's done. I mean, she skipped over to talk at the White House, despite the fact that it's all her research and he just talks instead. And it seems like a feminist, like, it seems like it's leading to some sort of feminist like plot point where it's called out and she's able to be pushed forward. But instead it just never happens and then he just dies. It was like a very weird section of the film because a lot of time is devoted to it and it has no resolution. And not to like get back on ragging on this film, but Contact has a lot of problems with a lot of plot points that don't have good resolutions or any resolution. They kind of just move on to another topic. But yeah, that was just the main point where it's like you think there's gonna be this feminist story and it really would fit in the film. I mean, there even her like there's a lot of like placement on like female characters in the film. Like her mom is a big factor, even though her mom died during childbirth, which is also a big point of feminist literature sometimes. So you think there's going to be this big deal about her being like this female scientist who discovered all this stuff, and she's being stepped over by a man who didn't even support her at any point just for the name of it all, and it just never happens. So I don't know. I just feel like that was a weird choice to include and not resolve in any way. But
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think the resolution being death by unforeseen circumstances really just yields the resolution to being circumstantial as well. Makes it a little bit harder to garner proper themes and values from it.
Oh gosh, sorry. Whew. Well, I guess going into that, we'll go touch on a couple of our last kind of things we want to talk about. So these two are going to be a little bit shorter, but one of the things that, both the movies have is space travel and how they are very differently depicted in the film. Somewhat, I guess. I guess they both have wormholes, which cool. In Interstellar, at least like on the science aspect, Interstellar like explains how wormholes work. They had the one astronaut guy, I forget his name, but had him put the pencil through the paper to kind of show how wormholes, close a distance and make it shorter. The crew goes through the wormhole and it feels like the ship's going to rip apart. It's shaking, the powers, the lights are flashing. While in Contact, it was just like, oh, nice and smooth ride, flashy lights, all that. And it was a very quick scene as well. It didn't feel very long. Well, in Interstellar, it was like a few minutes of a scene. It was a long scene. Granted, Interstellar is more of a space travel movie than Contact. There's still two similar, I guess, points that were brought up is like these wormholes, and they just took completely drastic, I guess, outlooks on it, which I think again kind of just reflects the time that both movies were made in.
Yeah, I agree. I think what is really relevant to me, and something I took away immediately in comparison of these two films is just the different ways that they reach that wormhole climax. Where in Interstellar, it's like this whole like adventure. It they literally have to go through interstellar and interplanetary travel, whereas Contact, not to, diminish the work of Ellie and all the effort that took into, decoding the various alien ciphers and figuring all of that out, but the instructions for how to reach this wormhole, the instructions for like building the contraption, which results in wormhole travel, was delivered to Ellie and Earth, which I found interesting. That they didn't really have to travel or really anything at all in order to be able to complete this wormhole extravaganza.
Yeah. I guess I never made that connection. Yeah, I kind of glossed over that. Huh. Yeah, they didn't do anything. It kind of just happened for them. They just took the Lego instruction book and put it together pretty much. That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
On top of that, they also didn't even figure out the encryption with all the people. It was the Haddon. He like tells her to come onto the helicopter, and is like says some weird stuff because he's like, "I've been watching you,"
Yeah.
and then he has pictures of her when she was like born and like all the way up until now, and he knows like exactly what T. There's actually a lot of weird points in this movie that are just so glossed over that it almost feels like I'm watching. It's like I'm watching a different movie than the movie's showing me. But yeah, he like shows like, oh, this is actually how the pieces go together. And that's why you guys can't find the fourth picture. There is no fourth picture. If they're fifth dimensional, or if they're like so intelligent, they're in a different level of paper. So when you make it into a cube, and then she goes back, she's like, it's a cube, and then everyone's like, oh, it's a cube. It's like, okay, so they didn't even they had all those decryption people, and this old man has it figured out. It's like a lot of the people, it's kind of like showing that they're kind of like incompetent a little bit. Like they are building it, so like, I guess you like they're following the blueprint, but a lot of the stuff is like handed to them, and like even though when it's handed to them, they still don't understand it. So it's like I guess it's almost showing like humans are kind of
Dumb.
well, yeah, it almost feels like they're like inadvertently. I don't even know if it's intentional. It just feels like when you start putting it together, it's like maybe humans aren't that smart. Like, or maybe it's supposed to show like the collective mind of of humanity is what makes them so powerful. Maybe that's the point of the film, and I'm just not getting it because when she lands in Vega, the alien that looks like her dad is I think he says something like humans can do like so much or whatever. Like but like I was watching the film, like, but you guys did all the work and then they just put it together. But maybe the point is that, oh, the collective mind is the most powerful part of humanity. But if that's the point, the film doesn't exhibit it that well. So I don't know. That's like the one I like general idea of like, oh, this is like the final, like, here's what you take away from it thing is, but who
Yeah, I
knows?
mean, I guess kind of like adding on to that. I'm pretty sure the alien was like saying like I guess not the alien itself. I guess like even the fact that humans are getting this message kind of shows like okay, these hyper intelligent aliens think that humans are smart enough to be part of this community.
Yeah.
So I guess I like that kind of take you're having where it's like a collective of the humans, not just one single human or something like
Yeah.
that. I like that.
I do wonder for I don't know the radio wave speed thing, but I just wonder about how that works because they're receiving back a transmission from the first like TV waves. I think waves for TV are a little
Oh yeah, that
faster.
was also
Like
funny.
if they're yeah, that was a crazy plot point. But if they're receiving the TV waves back, is it saying like over that amount of time it went there and they sent it back as TV waves, or are they sending them back as different waves? I was unable to tell.
Well, in a scientific aspect, I mean, just because of like units and stuff, light travels at so many meters, or sorry, sound waves or even TV waves only, move so fast, meters a second. It would be years and years and years before any of those waves hit anything. So, I mean, obviously, that's just part of a movie being a movie.
Hmm.
In a practical sense, it would be like many, many, many decades, more than what the movie
Yeah.
alludes on to, just through my own knowledge of how of physics and all that, be many, many, many years before it even hit like one of our nearby planets, even. And then these aliens are supposed to be from like light years and light years
Yeah,
and
I
light years
mean,
away.
because I looked in, I'm like looking into it, and it's like they could reach theoretically have reached Vega, but the problem is that they would be so faint that like even being able to detect them and decipher them would be so improbable because they would
Another
be so spread.
another thing too is sound waves don't travel in a vacuum. That's just another physics thing is there would be no audio
Yeah,
for them to have.
they would only have the radio wave. So like I like not, but they wouldn't have the sound of it because radio waves can travel, but they wouldn't
Not
have
in a
the.
vacuum. It just this is just a physics thing. Is like sound waves cannot travel in a vacuum, and they don't. What happens to them? I don't know. I'm just taught, is they don't travel in a vacuum. Space is a vacuum, so take that as you will, I guess.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess we could move on to, since we're already talking about space, we can move on to cynicism of or I guess the cynicism of space in the film, or the view of space travel in the film. I mean, we touched on it a little bit
We
earlier,
did a little
but
bit.
we can go a little bit more deep into it, like how the public viewed it in the film. We can also just talk about how public views it now. I mean, especially it's kind of topical now considering the whole Artemis 2 launch. I heard a lot of now we're definitely dating this now because we're talking about it just happened. But I know I saw a lot of people being like, why are we going to the moon? Like we have so many other things going on in the world. I know a lot of people have a very poor view of how science works, and they think that every scientist is actually able to do every single scientific task, but I don't want to call humans stupid. I just think that some people are uneducated in certain aspects of humanity. But I know big discussion is like, is it really worth it for us to travel to the moon? Not that it costs even a fraction of how much we spend on every single other thing in this country, but also just in general. This is kind of a topic that's brought up in the films too, where it's like we're devoting so much money to
Yeah, the
this thing.
funds and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like it's looked, I think Contact definitely goes at it more because they have a whole like press conference, like all these press conferences, a lot of press aspects, and like how the public is viewing it is very um talked about in context. There's like reverence from people. They talk about people were praying or hailing to Vega.
Yeah. Well, I mean, uh, Interstellar, I mean, they kind of went into that,
They
but
like
like,
gloss over
yeah,
it.
they're just like, oh, people don't want to know that we're giving money to NASA because they're starving. Why would we spend money on space travel then for food? But, that's also, there's a reason for that because the food's gonna go bad.
Mm.
But no, definitely Contact is that's like a major thing in the major theme, reoccurring thing in the movie. And Interstellar kind of just like talks about it for 2 minutes and that's it.
Yeah. I feel like Contact like focuses on that whole idea of like people who
Excuse me.
people who don't have a great understanding of like what's going on, and how even the government themselves will like question anyone who makes a claim about whatever they saw in space. I don't know, it just seems like that one aspect of Contact does feel very at the time. Like I think if I would have watched this maybe 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, that's so unrealistic because people would be excited about it. And then now I'm like, oh, that's like ultra realistic. People would definitely be very like have a lot of scrutiny for any sort of space travel, especially when they think other things are going on. I think in the film, the people, because I said earlier, I like the world in that film is not, they don't really mention things about war and stuff. So it seems like they're in like a pretty good peacetime. So the thought of space travel is probably more of a cool thing. But from a government perspective, the money going into it, I mean, they said it was like a quarter or a third of $1 trillion or something, like already before they even started building it. Like it was ballooning in terms of budget. So the government, obviously, they had issues with it, but the people were seemed to be pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of is relatable, but I guess it's kind of the other way sometimes now. I just think that the cynicism aspect is like very well addressed in Contact versus an Interstellar where it's just like, hey, but also there's less people to be mad because there's less people alive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that aspect too, but I guess like if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. they literally didn't know in Interstellar that that was happening until the ship launched. And even so, there weren't a lot of people in that area, so they only the people in the area probably would have known about it because communication
Yeah.
seemed like it was down at the time, or not as good.
Not as prevalent.
Yeah,
It was
because
more,
there was like the drone at the beginning,
yeah.
and it was all the way from like it was like an Indian drone,
Yeah.
so but it had lost like communication because they mentioned that comms went down there, so seemed
Yeah,
like
someone with the sun or something like
yeah, it
that.
was
I
just power. It
remember.
was just power, like flying off like solar power. So maybe communication being poor and like Interstellar as a whole more made it easier to not like know about NASA. So how would you even care about your money being spent if you don't know that they're spending your money on it?
That's also true.
Versus Contact where it's like, hey guys, we just found this thing out and it's like a whole nationwide.
It's a whole news thing.
Yeah, it's a whole like international thing, worldwide. That's what I'm trying to say. A whole worldwide like phenomenon. It's like you know it's happening, so everyone's discussing it. So I guess that breeds more time for cynics' point of view. But yeah.
I think another place where I see cynicism in both movies is, just with the actual mission at hand. In Contact, Ellie is met with a lot of cynicism just regarding her findings, her actually being like through the wormhole and whatnot. Whereas the cynicism in Interstellar is mostly from the scientists who have the most experience with the secret NASA facility, like Michael Caine's character and Dr. Mann. They have actual cynicism in regards to, the mission being worth it, the equation being solvable, all that stuff. So I found it interesting how there's definitely cynicism in regards to science in both films, but I thought the distinction between that coming from, Congress and the government and Contact as opposed to the scientists themselves in Interstellar was cool and worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh,
We're about at time.
yeah, we
Yeah,
are.
I feel like with that we definitely have covered
Yeah.
everything we were about, everything we wanted to cover for sure.
Yeah.
So should we do like a closer remark
Yeah.
or something? We want to do it this
I can
time,
do
like the
that.
last time.
I can do it this time. Yeah, so this is the episode 2 of the Real Talk podcast. We're talking about Interstellar 2013 or 14, sorry. I keep thinking it's made in 2013.
That's because Star was 2013.
Uh, and then
Contact.
Contact in
97.
1997. But uh both definitely reflect the time period that they were made in, and we definitely had a lot to say about both movies, but ended up, time and time again dogging on contact, unfortunately for contact. But no, I think we made a lot of good points today, and for next episode, we're going to be talking about the substance
Yeah, and
and seconds.